From Tally to Cali.
It's time
to wake up.
Wake up!
Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by
Vitamin Energy.
The vitamins.
The energy.
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hajavandi
and Corey Clark.
Wake up! It's Wake Up Warchant presented by Vitamin Energy. Coming up on today's show, there's a lot of football, I promise, but it's all the way at the end. Use the show notes. What's this whole thing about overpaying or not overpaying players? Should there only be one transfer window? And is there something the 2023 team can surpass the 2013 team for? Wake Up Warchant presented by Vitamin Energy. VitaminEnergy.com. Shake it and take it. The world's first and only clinically tested, clinically proven energy shot to reduce brain fog, improve your focus, improve your mood. That's right. This little bottle that I have in my hand. Hear that? A little ASMR in your ear, everybody? Sip the juice. Vitamin Energy. It's not even 2 fluid ounces in this bottle. It tastes great. I could drink a whole shot. I like to sometimes, Corey. Just for the actual taste hitting my palate. The sour apple workout plus variety. But get a little too amped up because I'm already high on life. Because I get to do this podcast with you 3 times a week on the off season and 5 days a week during the regular season. But you folks get a taste of it. Go to vitaminenergy.com. Again, use that. Oh, there isn't a promo code. I apologize. But just go to vitaminenergy.com. Shake it and take it. Warchant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source. Come home, please. You're like, well, it's not football season. I'll try later. Well, there's golf going down. Baseball, softball. The ACC softball tournament's in Massachusetts, Corey?
Yeah, it's why would it be somewhere where people actually care about the sport and would go watch it? They can put it in Boston.
Unbelievable. Anyhow, we got you covered all over at warchant.com. Corey, how you doing? How you doing, my friend? How's Central Florida treating you, my friend?
It's great. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful place. Hasn't rained yet, but I think it's about to. But either way, it's fun. We're having a good time. Living the dream. Living the dream, Aslan.
Our guy Island Chief said, in a year when the baseball team currently is a top 8 seed and likely to host a super if they were to advance cleanly here, is the men's golf team hosting a regional on its home course a bigger advantage? May the 8th through the 10th, go out and show up if you're in town. I don't think May 8th. They didn't start yesterday. I think it's coming up this weekend.
Yeah, you interviewed the golf team, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. Were they in the middle of a round?
They were not.
Okay, so that makes me think that it probably didn't start on May 8th. Look, man, I think the golf team, you could put them on any course, and they would have a good chance of being one of the top 5 teams out of 16. So I don't think it's a huge advantage, but I don't think it's like a necessity. I kind of think like it's a necessity for this Florida State baseball team to be at home as long as it can be at home. The golf team travels. They're gonna be pretty darn good wherever they go. I would be stunned if they didn't make it out of their own regional. For people that don't know, I think they invite I think it's 16 teams. It's 4 16-team regionals, and the top 5 of the 16 advance to the nationals. And then that's a following week, and it's a whole new tournament. But so like the women's team just did that, and I think they were in Lexington. So the same thing. Like, yes, it would have been an advantage for the Florida State women's golf team to play at Seminole, but I mean, they won their regional by like 10 strokes anyway in Lexington, so it didn't matter that much. Same thing with the men. It's an advantage, sure, but I think they're going to be one of the top 5 teams on almost any course they're on when it comes to regional play. The men, what do you think, Aslan? I think the baseball team it'd be really hard for them to advance out of a super regional if they're not at home.
I don't agree with that. No, Corey. I think they've got 2 frontline guys. They would need to sweep, which that's tough. That you're threading a very thin-eyed needle right there. But it's much like going to LSU the way they did in 2017. Like, I'm not, and that was what, Drew Parrish and CJ Van Eyck?
Van Eyck, yeah. That was 19 though.
Wasn't it? Yeah, you're right. That was 11's last season. Yeah, I don't know. I feel that good about Jamie and Joey Vellini, and I like this lineup. But if they were to find themselves on the road for a super regional, things would have to take a turn here in the next 2 weeks, though. So then I probably would feel a little bit different. But like right now, listen, I don't want to walk into Baum Walker Stadium in Fayetteville. I don't want to walk into wherever they call Texas. Like, I don't want to go to those places. Trust me, I do not want to. they're much better in spirits and position at Hauser, but I don't think it's insurmountable. And I don't know if you're saying that, but obviously the odds greatly change. I don't disagree with you there, but I still think they could go and pull this off because they have such strong frontline pitching. And if both those guys can get you, 21 outs, I can see a future where you get, 6 outs from 2 different people, or not 2 different, but 2 different days.
Yeah, but going back to the baseball team, like I just think that it's so hard. Like Hauser in the postseason, or for a big series, which those are, man, it's tough, dude. It's a tough place for opponents to come in and play. It's not just that Florida State plays better at home; the opponents play worse. And those aren't always that's not always a simultaneous thing. Like there aren't many teams that come in and other than Wake those last 2 days that come in and just relish playing at Dick Hauser Stadium, especially in the postseason. Their record, I imagine, is really, really good in the postseason at Dick Hauser Stadium, and this team has played really well at home. But we'll have a kind of a preview of what a super regional might be. We had one this past weekend, and we'll have one again next weekend when North Carolina comes to town. So, and that'll be a huge one. Like Florida State's in California this weekend. Cal is last in the conference. I think they're 6-18 in the league. You need to win 2 out of 3. Like it's baseball. You can't assume sweeps. It's just baseball's a goofy sport. You can't assume sweeps even if you're the better team, especially when you don't have your third day is just a wild card. But you need to win 2 of the 3, and then you keep pace. They're number 7 in the RPI right now. You would stay right around there. And then it might come down to that UNC series. If you win 2 of 3 against UNC, you're going to be a top 8 national seed. If you don't, you might not be. They might take your spot. I mean, that's a big series coming up. That'll be fun for folks, and it'll be good to get a taste of the postseason even before it's the postseason.
Yeah, Carolina's actually hosting NC State. They played them on Thursday. They're actually doing the Thursday, Friday, Sunday series.
That's weird. What's that about?
I don't know. Couldn't tell you. I don't know what's going on Saturday. I don't know. Maybe May 10th. There's nothing special going on May 10th. But yeah, we'll see how that series develops because I don't know. I think Florida State right now, I think if the season ends right now, would be second in the tournament, second seed, but they get top 4 get a double bye. It's a single elimination tournament now. The pool play stuff is gone, so
but who cares? Like
Link
even talked about that on Thursday. He's like, it's chaotic. It's pure chaos, the conference tournament. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's cool if you say you won the conference championship, but nobody cared about that for Mike Martin. He won like 15 of them, 20 of them. I don't know how many conference championships he won. The only number anybody cares about is the 0. So it just doesn't matter, conference tournaments. I mean, I don't think it helps your RPI at all. I don't think it can hurt it either. So, yeah, it'd be cool if they're a top 4 seed. It'd be cool if they won the regular season title, whatever that even means. But, yeah, the North Carolina series, and it's a bit of so Florida State plays Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So Jamie Arnold's going to be going on a day less rest than I guess Carolina, you said, starts on Thursday too.
Yes.
So they get an extra day off. They get an extra day off going into that Friday, or they get their normal rest. Florida State gets 1 less day. So we'll see if that matters at all. But it's kind of an odd. It's just odd that there's not a lot of I don't know. It's not concrete like you play these days. There seems to be a little more variance with schedules in baseball.
Right.
But who cares?
Last thing on the baseball front, our guy Tennis Ump, he thinks the 3rd game against Clemson really did a lot for the team's confidence by not blowing another large lead.
Yeah.
I'll add parenthetically to that same team that they did last year twice. How much, in a positive way, do you think that will affect our team's morale going forward into the postseason? Thanks as always for all you guys do.
I don't know. It's hard to quantify. It can't hurt it. It can't hurt it because, again, a lot of those guys, now I know they might not have been Max Williams was on that team. Drew Farreau, Alex Lodice. I think some of the pitchers that pitched in that game would have been maybe would have been on that. I know Abraham was in the game. Joe Charles was on that team last year. So they lived it. They lived that life. So I think that it could help. But postseason is just such a different animal, man. It's almost hard to it's hard to know what really helps and sparks a team and what doesn't. Like, I don't know what sparked the Florida State team last year. I don't know what the key turning point was in their season. Kind of, it seems like it was that Clemson series, even though they lost it and got embarrassed those last 2 games because they blew big leads. I think the very next game was at Florida, right? Or against Florida after that debacle in South Carolina, and they run ruled them. So it can just flip really quickly. So I don't know. It shouldn't. It can't hurt. But I say that if Joe Charles comes in and it's the Friday night Joe Charles that he was against Clemson, then it doesn't matter. Hopefully he can build on that. I think that's what you hope. Joe Charles is probably he's your most valuable arm in the bullpen right now. He's the guy I think you think has the best stuff and can be a real difference maker out there. But you got to get a little more consistency out of him. So if he can build on that, then that's a huge development.
Yeah, so right-handed arms right now, it's what, Joe Charles, Payne Prescott, and Chris Kinnear. And then maybe like Peyton Manca and Mason Martinez, because those guys right now are, I don't know, I think Martinez might be a guy that they try to put in on Sunday if Mendez can't go far. So they've got they still have the same kind of option, but it does feel like some of that's there's a tier, right? That's like Joe Charles and Payne Prescott. Abraham's probably along the same level too. I don't know. Maybe the more I think that we're coming in closer on figuring who it is, we really still don't know.
You need your two hosses to pitch deep in the games. Yes. That's what it is. And even if Mendez is pretty good by his standards, he's never going to give you more than 5. So Sunday is always a wild card bullpen game. You kind of start out with that thought and hope he gives you 4 or 5 innings, but understand that it's probably going to be around 3. Maybe into the 4th or 5th inning, but he's not going to give you a quality start and get you into the 7th inning. Almost assuredly, that's not going to happen.
The Martinez
offense is really good.
Yeah, the Martinez development, if he's what he was on Tuesday night, and he was going through some stuff physically, injury-wise, so if that's behind him, that changes things because, they only have one more weekend series after this one, and that's the Carolina series. So, whatever Mendez gets you on Sunday, Martinez comes and is a tandem, and they get the job done on a Sunday against Carolina. That would be ideal. But that gives you a piece for your regional play, a guy that's going to be able to extend out and get you some more innings. Link mentioned on Thursday, Connor Holtz is finally available. Holtz, you mentioned earlier this week, was a guy who went, 4 innings against Carolina in that elimination game? Maybe 4 and change?
Picked up the save. Maybe the win. I guess he would have gotten the win in that game, but he pitched the final 4 1/3 innings.
Yeah, so Link's he needs to throw better than he did the beginning of the season. And he mentioned that he actually, in the preseason, they thought was throwing better than he did towards the end of last season. So Link just talked about he thinks there's something about getting a taste of being out in Omaha that, will drive you a little bit better the next time around. And I don't know how much of the team morale beating Clemson factors into all of that, but it's part of the mix. Yeah, everything's coming together nicely, it feels like, for the team. I know we still can't give you a firm 1, 2, 3 guys who they're going to bring out of the bullpen, but the lineup, to your point, Corey, the offense really is something legitimately strong they can lean on. I feel like you got those 2 frontline guys, and then the bullpen is not a complete gong show. It's just they got to get some things in order, and they got 2.5 weeks to figure it out.
You do, and you just think that, look, man, you hope it doesn't come to that. If it comes to, bullpen games, you're not going to go very far in the postseason, and that goes for almost every college baseball team. You need good starts. You need your starting pitching to give you, especially in a regional, those first 2 guys need to give you about 13 innings combined at least. They need to get you whatever that is, 40 outs. And if that happens, you like Florida State's chances, even if their bullpen isn't great, because hopefully they'll have 6 or 7 runs on the board, and you only need to patch together 2 innings of relief work. And that's got to be their recipe. The problem with last year is, like we just said, you can't go into an elimination game where it's Andrew Armstrong and Connor Holtz and think that you're going to win a lot of those and then have to come back and do it again the next day against Tennessee. You got to win the first game when you're out there. That is and I know we're getting way ahead of ourselves, but this team always has to win game 1. Game 1 is critical. If it can win game 1, it's on the path to winning every series. All right, we'll have a chance. If it loses game 1, yikes.
All right, moving along. We usually don't dip too much into Twitter, but on yesterday's show, we kind of talked a little bit about Florida State, where they reside right now in college football. I think somebody misinterpreted some of the part of the conversation, thinking that I was saying that Florida State's not a top 25 football program, historically or big picture, which that wasn't really what we were discussing yesterday. It's more just about preseason top 25, looking at what these teams were last year, what they project out to be this upcoming season. Are there 25 teams better than Florida State? We rattled off a bunch. At least I rattled off a bunch. We still didn't get to 25 teams. But this was posted on Twitter. We did the breakout video from yesterday, Corey. And, FSU Twitter is a very interesting place. Some of the replies include, there might be 50. to the post.
Right.
Someone says, "Is this a serious post?" Another one, LOL, what? There's 60 better teams. Somebody asked, are there 25 teams that are worse? And then somebody said, probably, which I think that's kind of fair. Any other thoughts on that thought exercise from yesterday about, how much we really can or cannot take from last year? I know Florida State, completely different reset offense. You mentioned that, but I think a lot of these other teams that we would assume are ahead of Florida State, it's because they do return so much returning talent production. But like Miami's a team that I think maybe nationally people would say is ahead of Florida State. And they too, whole new quarterback, all new receivers, whole new reset on defense. But that's looked upon as they were so poor on defense. They'll definitely take a step forward and they'll be that much better. But Florida State doesn't get that benefited out for being that bad on offense and being able to take a step forward.
It's just like those replies to me, and just the thought exercise in particular is just, again, I think it's just foolish. There's no basis in reality for any opinion. Like, how can we have an opinion on? I mean, everybody can have an opinion on anything, clearly, but like, how can we speak with any confidence about anything? Like, especially when it comes to this football team. Like, yes, last year's team, there were 100 teams better than that one. But guess what, man? Tommy Castellanos wasn't the quarterback. Deuce Robinson and Squirrel White weren't on the team. Neither was Gunnar Hansen or Pettis or Pettibone or Sawchuk or Javian Boggs or Gus Malzahn and Herb Hand or Tony White and James Williams and Knighton. Like, it's an entirely different team. So how could anybody with confidence say, yeah, man, they're middle of the road? Well, who's top of the road? Who? Explain it to me, because none of these teams have formed and played together, and everybody last year would have laughed you out of a building if you would have implied that Indiana would go 11-1 or SMU would get to the playoff without winning the ACC. I mean, that would have been craziness. We just don't know. We just don't know, and that's all I'm trying to. I'm not trying to sell hope, but I'm certainly not going to sit here and well, I guess I am trying to sell hope. But I'm definitely not going to try to wallow in despair, because that's nonsensical. We don't know. Ask me again. I hate to kick it down the road. Ask me again after the Virginia game. We'll have because Alabama's not going to tell us a ton. Just like Notre Dame in 2021, what did that tell us? We thought Florida State was back. They took a top 10 team to overtime. They lost the next week to Jacksonville State. So they could lose to Alabama. They could get blown out. They could lose in overtime. Maybe they even win. They're going to win the next two games regardless. That Virginia game is where we'll know for real what is this team. Whether it's 4-0 or 3-1 or 2-2, we'll know then. But I don't know. It just seems I don't know if Castellanos is going to be awesome. I have a feeling in Gus Malzahn's offense that guy is going to make some plays. And it's going to be an offense that scores 33 points a game. And if you're scoring 33 points a game, you're giving yourself a chance. If they're scoring 23 points a game, it's going to be another year of futility and despair and probably a new head coach search at the end of the year.
Well, so why did you feel so good about the team in 2023 preseason then?
Well, that's because it had been proven. Like you had the quarterback, number one, was exceptional at the end of the year. And then also you had Verse coming back, and then you had you had Johnny coming back. You had Keon that was an addition. Like, that's why. So
I think a lot of these other teams that people are assuming have similar traits, like similar.
But did they have a Jordan Travis and a Jared Verse? Like, Carson Beck hasn't done anything at Miami.
I mean, South Carolina might.
Yeah, sure, but that's one team. Yeah, South Carolina feels good about that guy, and they have that defensive end that's really good. So yeah, they have a reason to be excited, but that's one team. That's South Carolina, and I just think if you don't know what your quarterback is, and Florida State doesn't either.
And Texas, does Texas? I mean, we know Arch. But do we really know Arch Manning?
We not really.
Gunnar Stockton, is he really? Everyone thought, actually, sneaky good thing that Carson Beck got injured in Atlanta because that didn't work out.
That ain't a guarantee. Alabama's not a guarantee. Like there are very few established quarterbacks in this country at the Blue Bloods where you're like, yeah, they're going to be incredible. But the schools like Texas, Georgia, Ohio State, I think they put enough dudes on the roster that even if the quarterback is just average or a little bit above average, they're going to have a very good season. Florida State is not in that boat. They need Castellanos to be good. They need him to stay healthy, probably. But you just like, I don't know, man. It's hard.
You
it's
covered
hard
a
to
team
know.
that was awesome. You covered a team that was awesome, and you knew they were going to be awesome.
No, I didn't. I knew they were going to be very good. I wasn't like sitting there thinking, oh, they're going to run the table this year.
But you
I didn't
thought
think
they were
they'd
a
go
playoff
13-0.
caliber team, though.
Yeah, for sure. I did. But that
in a
was
four-team team playoff.
They were coming off a 6-game winning streak the year before and brought, other than Jamie Robinson, brought every big piece back. Every big piece. Well, I guess Dylan Gibbons. That was a big loss that we didn't know at the time. But they brought most of the big pieces back, and you just so believed in the quarterback. And when you have a quarterback that's been through it for 3 years, and you've seen him grow into what when you think about what Jordan Travis looked like in that Florida game with his legs, and then the Oklahoma game where he threw for 400 because they couldn't run the ball. Yeah, man, you go into that next season thinking, yeah, this team has a chance to be really good, especially because they added the tight end from South Carolina. They added an NFL wide receiver. That's why. That was more of a known because of what they had done the year before and a couple of additions. This is a complete wild card. Like literally, Aslan, like I literally would not be stunned if they won 9 or 10 games. I would not be stunned if they won 5. And I think that's kind of the way of the world for the foreseeable future. If you're at a place that isn't in SEC or Big Ten blue blood. Same thing with Miami. What's Miami? Things went really well for them last year. They got the best player in the country in the portal in January. And he was awesome all season. But they lose 4 games?
Yeah.
I mean, so why would we think that this team with a worse quarterback is going to win more games? I'm not saying it can't happen, but he ain't Cam Ward. So it's hard to know. I liked it better when I could get the Street and Smith magazine in 1999 and see, they got 18 starters returning, including their entire offense. Holy cow. Think about what Street and Smith would look like now with the Florida State. Starters returning, offense, 0. Literally, right? Are they returning a starter from last year?
I mean, if you want to call Richie Leonard, if he ends up holding on to a job.
So 1, and on defense, like Shaheem, Darrell Jackson, one of the linebackers. So are they returning like 4 starters from the entire team?
Sounds about right.
And we're going to sit here and pretend we have any idea what it's going to look like? No. I mean, the only thing I know is it'll be better. I think the coaching is better, and I think the roster is better. But I don't know if it's worlds better or just a world better. I don't know if you're going to have an 8-game improvement or a 4-game improvement.
Well, the real thing, the test is this Indiana? Because they did a complete reset, right? Like, we've talked about how much Florida State's gone into the portal, but they have not done what they're just about to do this coming season in terms of like complete overhaul. Like we mentioned, like I'm sure there was at least more than 4 or 5 returning starters on last year's team. That whole offensive line returned from 2023. So you had that. You had Lawrence Toafili. You had your tight end. So the fact that they're going into this to this season with such a few amount of returning starters, I think to me the cynic take is what team that has a coach that's still the head coach is the same has gone under this much upheaval is going to have a good successful year. But it's like, well, that's kind of what Indiana did. But Indiana changed everything. I mean, they new head coach, new coordinators. Florida State did all of that, but the head coach is the same. So how much of that can you either mitigate or that's the real.
Well, and that implies, and it's an implication that's deserved. That implies that Norvell is a net negative for the program, or it could imply that.
We'll find out, right?
Right, but we don't know. Like right, obviously he's not riding high, but that implies that he can't get it done anymore. Even though you've given him a whole new roster in a mostly a new coaching staff, he's so bad at his job and so in over his head that he can't make it work, which is like a weird take when he just went 13-0. But it's also a fair take, as I speak out of both sides and ride the fence as long as I can, because he just went 2-10. So, yeah, man, normally 2-10s at Florida State get you fired, and rightfully. This was a bizarre set of circumstances where he had just gotten that huge extension, and you literally couldn't afford to do it. That's the only reason he still has a job, is because Alabama's job came open. That's the only reason Norvell is still at Florida State, in my opinion. But he is at Florida State, and he has proven he can do it. He's also proven he can suck beyond anyone's expectations in dreams and nightmares. So hopefully he can find some middle ground. Mike, we'll take another 10-3, baby. We don't need championships right away in this rebuild, quote unquote, but good grief. 2-10 changed the whole calculus to everything. Yeah. And normally he would be gone, but you had an extenuating set of circumstances where you couldn't afford to fire him. So you got him a highly paid staff, and you went and spent some money on some players. Let's see what he can do. I don't think he's such a bad coach that it's impossible to win here, because he's proven it is possible.
I don't want to put work on your plate, but thinking about what you said like 5 minutes ago, maybe one of the things to do this offseason is to look at these teams that we maybe suspect are better positioned than Florida State, like the 10 teams from the SEC, the 4 from the Big, et cetera. And look at who the starting quarterback is. Because I know we talk about it all starts up front. If you can't protect, if you can't block, what good is everything? True, not disputing that at all. But it really is when you think about the dearth of return. Is Drew Aller like him Klubnik? I mean that list of guys that what's our guy
kid at LSU?
Yeah, Nussmeier, like Greg McElroy, like cut that list, and that's probably where you start. Like if you want to talk about what teams you think are better than Florida State, you probably would start, I would think, by looking at what you assume are the teams with the 10 best returning quarterbacks. And we did the whole exercise, right? Like, would you rather take that quarterback with Norvell or, Gus and Tommy? And it's like, well, man, I don't know, like Shannon Dawson and Carson and Beck coming off an injury, or Tommy and Gus, I don't know, man. It's not that far-fetched to think that maybe you're in a better position, but we'll see how that comes. Corner Pocket Bar and Grill, 2475 Appalachian Parkway. Great food, delicious food. Till 1:30 in the morning. 40 TVs, Corey. They got 40 TVs. Did you know that?
I didn't know it was 40. I mean, I knew it was a lot. I'd never actually counted. I feel like it's more than that, honestly, but 40 is still a high number.
I don't know if they've got 40 options for their wings, but they've got different sauces, but they're all the best because the wings at Corner Pocket Bar and Grill are the best in town. We need to do some sort of competition, and I'll put all my money behind Bill and the boys at the CP when it comes to wings. Dartboards, pool tables, it is called Corner Pocket after all, and the Corey wrap. We need to see if we get like a t-shirt made at Corner Pocket, like some sort of cross-promotion. CP, Warchant, Corey wrap, your face, the wrap itself. We'll see. Hopefully, in the meantime, we'll actually see you folks at the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. Check out the menu at cptallybar.com or just show up for a great time. 2475 Appalachian Parkway. Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. Hey, you know what, Corey? Let's go ahead and let's give some stuff away. And I like to use the royal we because when I say we, it's not you or I. It's our awesome friends over at Cummins. A part of this generating discussion thing we've been doing now for over a year, everybody. We give a grand prize drawing at the end of the year, portable generator up for grabs. But in the meantime, all of our weekly winners get entered into a monthly drawing for a Cummins gift bag, t-shirt, hat, portable battery. So we've got our winners from the month of April. We've got our guy S-Quinn67, Bennett Knoll, Tennis Ump, and Dalvinism. How many times do you want me to hit shuffle, Corey?
Twice.
Once. Twice. Let's spin it. See who the winner is. You all can get involved by putting your questions on the Tribal Council every week for the Renegade Express mailbag. The winner is Bennett Knoll, it looks like. Congrats to Bennett Knoll. Be on the lookout for a DM coming your way.
Old B-Dog, getting it done.
He's a new guy over on warchant.com and also getting involved here in the podcast. So the question for this week, Corey, is something that I think is a bit near and dear to your heart, I feel like. It's this whole fact of coaches making obscene sums of money, not having a lot of accountability for being able to leave whenever they want, and maybe hopes of a brighter future for the entire sport of college football. So we go to our guy, Noel Dynasty, who, by the way, says that he was listening to the show, as he always does, while being on a treadmill at the gym. And he said that actually somebody next to him was also listening to the show. So he's got a friend now. I should read it, actually. Quick note, I often listen to Wake Up during my morning workout. A few weeks back, I noticed another gym goer was also listening to Wake Up as I saw it on their phone. New gym buddy, thanks to you two fine gentlemen. Bringing people together.
That's what we do, Aslan. We bring people together. Well, Florida State fans mainly, but we try to bring them together. We do the Lord's work.
Corey, you want to push the button or crank the generator on for us? It's generating discussion. It's sparked by Cummins, and it's sparked by our guy, Nole_Dynasty. When first answering this question, tell me why it would work before why it would not. Why could a coach, or rather, why could a university simply not have a head coach position and then spend those funds on top-notch coordinators or NIL? How would this work, Corey? All right, so let's live in a world where you and Ira Schofel are my offensive. You're the offensive coordinator. Ira's my defensive coordinator. There is no head coach. You're coaching the offense, doing your thing. He's coaching the defense. How does this work on game day? Like what's the operation? Who decides when to? I mean, it's fourth down. We're on offense. You want to go for it. You don't have anybody to answer to, right? I mean, what does Ira really got to say to it?
Yeah, that's the rub here. To say why it would work is that, theoretically you have two sides of the ball. If you'd have just said that Jimbo Fisher was the head coach of the offense and Jeremy Pruitt was the head coach of the defense, it seems like 2013 would have worked okay. But obviously the rub here, the problem is who is in charge? Who does make these decisions? Who makes decisions on whether kids get kicked out of the program? Who makes decisions on who to recruit? The buck has to stop somewhere.
Is it the GM? In this world, do we create like a GM?
Okay. You could, but then it's like, okay, well then who makes those? Does the GM buzz in and say, hey, y'all need to kick the field goal here? Who decides those late game situations, when to call timeout, when to go for it on fourth down? All that stuff. You
discussed it before the season, Corey. Again, I'm going to try to see how this works. So before the season, you get the Florida and Clemson game, and then Ira gets game planning in terms of strategy, Miami and Alabama. And then the other 8 games will just randomly draw where when it comes to those late game decisions, you guys go back and forth on it. It's all right, Virginia game. And that whole week going into it, it was much like when Harbaugh was suspended, right? Harbaugh was suspended. Sharon Moore, you're the head coach for this game. Mike Hart, I think, was the head coach for one game. So you can be like, all right, this game is all you. And at least not all you, but when it comes down to, are we going for on fourth down? Are we challenging a play? Things like that,
Well, you could see it would be complicated and complex. We're not talking
really, though. Is that really that complex?
Yeah, I mean, you can't be like, okay, you get this game to call fourth down. What if you're horrible at those decisions, and then 2 games later it's your turn again? Nobody can say, well, no, we hated what you did. Who would even say it?
The ego's aside at that point. It's bared before all of us.
Yeah, but you might be like, well, they screwed it up. I'm not going to let Ira run the show just because the guys that I called a great play and they screwed it up. I'm still the best. I'm the guy that should be doing this. There would be you need some hierarchy. But what we're not talking about is the perceived positive of it is you're not paying your head coach $10 million, so you're paying for better players. You're spending that money on something tangible. Maybe, that could help. I feel like there's a reason all companies have CEOs. All sporting teams have a head coach because it would probably devolve into chaos if it didn't after a couple of weeks, I would think. But you might have a collection of guys that just do it. It's like a rock band, man. You got to have a leader, Aslan. When you don't have a leader, you break up after 5 years.
I'm trying to think of what GM is the face of their NFL team.
Nobody.
I can't think of one, but coaches have to answer to GMs. Only guys like Andy Reid and Bill Belichick and maybe Mike Tomlin are able to really have full sort of latitude. So I just wonder if you have that Andrew Luck at Stanford, he's like, listen, this is what I want to do. I want to live in Palo Alto. I want to be around football. I think I've got a good eye for evaluating players. I want to be the one that's responsible for us allocating our money to guys in the portal. I'll hire an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator, and I'll designate titles to them in terms of game management on particular games, but we're not paying anybody here at Stanford University. We're not paying any coach more than $2 million a year. We're going to put all that money into getting the best players. I'm going to pick the players. You guys are going to drop the plays. You're going to call the plays. And then we're going to create a system here where we can manage the in-between.
Somebody could try it. Nobody has. Nobody's had the balls. Nobody's had the gumption to try it yet. Maybe somebody will. And you could have at least co-head coaches. You could give that a go. I just think it would eventually nobody's ever happy being half a head coach. There always ends up being a wrestle for control, a wrestle for power. In the history of humanity, there's always somebody wanting to ascend to the throne and be the most powerful, and that would happen on a college football team too. So I just don't think it would be it would get acrimonious quickly, I think. I don't think it would be lollipops and rainbows. Even if you're winning games, somebody's going to feel like they're the bigger reason you're winning games.
Exactly,
so
yeah.
they should get more control and they should be paid more.
But I'd say the 2013 team is almost like the best example because both sides of the football were equally responsible for the greatness of that. So like Jeremy Pruitt really couldn't have been like, this is all me. Like I should be making more money than Jimbo. And Jimbo couldn't have been, listen, if at that point Bobby Bowden was the GM and was the guy like, listen, I picked you two guys to run each side of the football, but I'm going to pick out our rosters. That team was well balanced. But yeah, what happens when you are 63rd in total defense, but you're top 5 in offense? And at the end of that season, your defensive coordinator or your offensive coordinator is looking and how are we both making the same amount of money?
Right.
I don't think anybody's altruistic enough to be like, well, hey, that's just the way it worked this year. Next year might be a whole completely different ball game. I'll be humble enough to realize that maybe I'll be on the way down, so I'll be fine with it.
It would have been cool in the 90s if Florida State had done that with Mickey. Just made him the defensive head coach and Bobby Bowden the offensive head coach. I do think that could have worked. Neither one of them were making a ton of money back then by, normal standards. They were very, very well compensated. But like, I think most guys that were recruited by Florida State to play on defense, while it was cool to say they played for Bobby Bowden, I'm sure he was a hit in the home. They went and played for Mickey Andrews. They swear by Mickey Andrews. Just like the offensive guys love playing for Bowden because of the high-flying offense he had. So maybe that could have worked. Otherwise, it just seems like it's destined for a lot of agony. But you might win games in the process, and you might have an awesome quarterback. Make him the head coach.
Last part, is the hardest thing going to be the in-between, the offseason, figuring out the team, or the actual in-game every Saturday? That's where this would be the biggest blight. Like,
but
what are we
also
thinking?
It's a way you run your program. Like, going back to Norvell real quick, like, he does have a way he wants to run his program and the caliber of kid he wants to bring in the program. Obviously, he needs better players, but he's looking for a certain type of kid. Well, so he doesn't want malcontents. He doesn't want guys that are lazy. But what if there's nobody that can, from the top down, have that sort of edict of this is what I'm looking for? Then I feel like the defensive guy might have a philosophy of, I just want the best players. I don't care if their high school coach liked them. I don't care if he went to 5 high schools or got kicked off one of them. This guy runs a 4.42. He's an outside linebacker, and he's a freak. He might end up being good. And the other, there's no guardrails. And the offensive coach is like, nope, I want straight-laced. I want Rick Trickett types. That's who I'm looking for. Well, I don't think that can win either. I think you need there's a lot of problems with it. But again, the biggest bonus is you're saving yourself a lot of money. And I know Mike Norvell sort of gave up some money from last year when he $4.5 million that he donated back, kind of. But he got paid way too much money to be horrible. They could have gone 2-10 with me at head coach, and I would have done it for $200,000.
The glare on this thing is terrible. I should have changed it. But shout out to our guy, by the way, before we leave, Gator Kirk, who emailed me and said that he had a expired tag and he was going to throw it out, and whether or not I wanted it. Crazy thing is, it's got a sticker on it. It says 25. So I feel like I guess it expired in April. So like, what, you got to get a whole new license plate in the state of Virginia?
Maybe if it's like a one of those types of tags.
Man, that glare is really something, huh?
But you can see it. It's Warchant. It's WRCH &T. Yeah. Warchant.
Shout out to our guy Gator Kirk. Shout out to our great friends over at Cummins, by the way, as well. All right, let's go to Dalvinism here. Our guy says, wake up. I have got a prime offseason question for you. And he does, Corey. It's true.
All right.
Will the 2023 FSU roster end up with more or less total Pro Bowl appearances than the 2013 team? He went ahead and did the research for us.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Dalvinism. The 2013 team, as of right now, has had 11 Pro Bowl appearances. 7 from Jalen Ramsey, 2 from Devontae Freeman, 1 from Jameis, 1 from Telvin. Man, the Telvin Smith story, man, still hurts. The 2023 team already has one from Jared Verse. So can you see Verse and Renardo, or I guess Keon? I think Keon's going to make a Pro Bowl or two probably, but man, they got to get 10 more just to match.
I think Verse is going to be Ramsey, though. Like, I think Verse is going to make it every year as long as he's healthy. Like, he's going to be a perennial Pro Bowler, so he might rack up 7 or 8 or 6. So you're halfway home just with him. But who are you filling in after that? Fisk?
I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, I think Fisk can make it, too. Fisk is going to always put up big numbers. So I think he has a chance to make a Pro Bowl. Plus, I mean, you could get to, like, the 6th alternate and be a Pro Bowl. Like, Jameis Winston was a Pro Bowler, but come on, man. He was never one of the 5 best quarterbacks in football. Right. But he still made a Pro Bowl because other guys were either in the Super Bowl, didn't want to go to Hawaii. I think it was still in Hawaii back then, or were hurt, just didn't feel like doing it. So he filled in. I would have. Is Mastromanno on a team?
Nah, I've not seen him get.
I don't understand it. He would have been the guy that I'm like, okay, if he finds a home, he could be an All-Pro for 15 years. So I'm going to say under, but I would like if Mastromanno was on a team. Like Fitzgerald at least gets a shot with the Panthers. I can't imagine that Mastromanno's just done punting footballs. He could do it with both legs, Aslan.
I've heard.
Yeah, he did in a game. Jacksonville State remembers they're still talking about it, that he rolled out to his left and punted.
I want to say, no, I think Denver's where, what's our guy, Darius Washington, I think, ended up. But yeah, I've not seen him catch on to a team yet. But yeah, I mean, if you subscribe to Verse as your Jalen Ramsey, then I would say over, because I think Keon Coleman is going to get you more than 2.
Okay,
which what you got from Devontae. So that's like,
he only had like 28 catches last year. He averaged like less than 2 catches a game, which was odd. I'd liked him to be a little more involved in that offense. But yeah, could be.
But that fan base and with that quarterback, I feel like are good conditions.
Yeah.
Which probably helps Fisk, like being in LA, I mean, that market. But I just don't know. Like when I think of defensive tackles, you've got to do some really, I don't even know. I can't even tell you who like is considered like the best defensive tackle. Probably somebody from Georgia that plays for the Eagles. I'm sure.
Probably. That's a good guess. A good guess.
But all right, I was going to say the under going into this, but now you've got. I'm going to still stick with the under.
I think that's. I think that's a smart bet. I think that would be like minus 200, the under.
What's your dream staff, Corey? Our guy Ranye, who actually wanted to see you May 1st in Atlanta at the Mike Norvell booster stop. But I told him,
sorry, Ranye.
If you were the head coach of Florida State, who would be your dream staff? He says his offensive coordinator would be Joe Brady. Mine would be Jimbo Fisher. His defensive coordinator would be Kirby Smart. Defensive line, Larry Johnson, who was at Penn State and then has been at Ohio State of late. He'd have Peter Warwick coaching the receivers, Nick Saban coaching the secondary, Tim Brewster coming back to coach the tight ends, Mario Cristobal coaching the O-line, and Warwick Dunn coaching the running backs. He didn't give us a linebackers coach.
Derek Brooks.
Okay. I'm trying to think.
Or Marvin.
Dan Lanning.
Those are all good, man. Those are all well thought out. I would say I would go with Hartline as my receivers coach, and I love P-Dub to death. Love P-Dub to death. But Brian Hartline is producing guys, and I shouldn't say producing. They get him really good clay to mold. But he's molding them, and they're all really good. So I would say the Ohio State wide receivers coach would be my guy. Other than that, sounds like a good staff to me. And if Sarah Blakely's my benefactor, it don't matter. You could give me you could give me the staff at Chick-fil-A for what, like the day shift, and give me Sarah Blakely money to just do what I want, and I'd feel pretty good about what's going to get accomplished.
Would you rather take Kirby or Dan Lanning as a defensive coordinator if you were starting like
Kirby? Kirby. Want Kirby in my program.
I do too, man.
Hey, he was at when I went to the Braves game last weekend. He was there. And what was funny, it's not funny, it makes sense, but they showed him, he got a big ovation, and then he did the chop. And I'm like, look at him, the roots. I mean, he happened to be at a Braves game, so he's probably doing it for the Braves. But I think deep down, he's a huge Nole fan and wants to come back.
Oh, imagine that.
I know there's no chance
I know.
unless he just gets tired of Georgia fans after a while because he goes like 3 years without winning a championship.
All right, last two. Noles North. Guys, what are your superstitions when it comes to watching your favorite teams? Corey has thoroughly communicated his anxiety while watching the Braves and Hawks, but not sure that registers as a superstition. Although I do not always follow through, perhaps at the Noles' expense, but if I do not start watching a game from the beginning for basketball and baseball, I will not join midway to watch to the end. I will pop in to check on the score and perhaps who is in at that point in the game for a gauge of how things may play out. I feel like they lose 80% of the time when I join late, often with leads, sometimes large. I also always watch to the end of football, except last year's Notre Dame game, going back to the 92 Georgia Tech comeback. Never give up. I bring this up after joining in on the Sunday baseball game up 7-0, then bailing at 11-9.
Smart.
And then seeing the run rule win. Yeah, this is interesting. The 2013 team vanquished all my superstitions because I was terrible about this stuff. Like, everybody can't move, remain in your seats. I can't be in the room any longer because when I went to grab a beer, they got a first down for the first time in a quarter. Like, I was all about that stuff. Then I'm like, oh no, it's just when you have a really awesome team and you're the superior, that works out and nothing.
Jinx proof. They were jinx proof.
Yeah.
Not many teams are, though. I don't really have any superstitions as far as like wearing a shirt or not watching the game necessarily. Although I did not I won't do it ever again. But in 2021, and I've told the story, I did not watch Game 6 of the World Series that the Braves won. I was convinced that when I watched, they didn't do well. I couldn't handle the emotions. I also didn't watch when they beat the Dodgers in Game 6. All I did was what I would do was because I wouldn't do Twitter either, because Twitter will give you updates. You'll see just some guy go, "Oh no,"
yeah.
or some guy go, "Eddie Rosario!" exclamation point. I'm like, well, what does that mean? So what I would do was I would stay on the Atlanta Braves official account, and every like 45 minutes I would scroll down to update it to see if there were any new posts. And so I started doing that for the Dodgers Game 6. And then I didn't do that at all. I watched all the game. I went to Game 5 where they hit a grand slam and then still lost when they could have clinched it. But I did that in Game 4, driving back from when Florida State lost at Clemson in Death Valley, but they lost late. Like, they had the lead until the final 2 minutes and lost.
And didn't cover.
Didn't cover, and everybody said Jordan Travis sucks. Can't win anything with him because he lost by a field goal at Clemson. But anyway, with that team. So on the way back, I didn't listen to the game, and all I did was I would check Twitter, and literally I think it was 2-0 or 2-1 in the 8th inning. The Atlanta Braves account didn't update anything for an hour and a half, and I'm like, well, they must be losing 8-1. And then all of a sudden, it's a shot of Dansby hitting a home run to tie the game in the 8th, and then the next thing I know, it's Jorge Soler hits back to back. And then my phone, I can also tell when something good is happening, my phone starts buzzing. There's a lot of text, a lot of group text going on. And so anyway, I didn't watch that game 4, where they wanted to go up 3-1. I didn't watch a single pitch because I was working, and then I had to drive back to Atlanta after the Clemson Florida State game. And I'm like, oh, well, we're going to Game 5. The Braves are up 3-1. They're going to close it out at home. This will be like, 1995 all over again. And then they lost. I was there. They lost. Spent a lot of money to watch them lose. And I'm like, screw it. Clearly, it's my fault for watching the game. So I did not watch Game 6. I just did the same thing where me and Stephanie watched a movie, and I updated the Braves Twitter account. And then it showed Soler hitting a 3-run homer. It showed Dansby hitting a 2-run homer. Then my phone starts blowing up. And then no updates for like 45 minutes. No updates, and all of a sudden my phone starts really blowing up. And I'm like, man, the Braves are blowing this lead. They're blowing, and the Braves account won't update it. Like, hey, by the way, the Astros are coming back. They just tweet the highlights. But anyway, so I did not watch a second of that game till it was over. And then I've watched the replay probably 10 times since. And I lost a lot of money because I bet against the Braves. That's my other superstition. I bet against the teams I want to win.
Do you remember what movie you guys were watching?
Yeah, so for that game, we watched this. It was a Jake Gyllenhaal movie where like he's a 911 operator. It was clearly a COVID movie. Where like nobody could be in the room with him. So he's on the phone all the time with somebody committing a crime or about to commit a crime. I don't remember the name of it, but it was Jake Gyllenhaal 911 movie. And then for the Dodgers game, it was a Ryan Reynolds movie where he's like in a video game.
Oh,
like
yeah.
Free Man or something. Neither were great. Stephanie says that movie's the worst movie she's ever seen.
Okay.
And it's crazy we didn't watch the Dodgers. We watched that. But, hey, I got my team a World Series championship, everyone.
I did stop. I used to do this really annoying thing. I'm going to do it now, everybody. Sorry. But when a team, the opposition, was lining up for a field goal or shooting a free throw, I would always I'm usually at home by myself, watching these things. So I wasn't doing it in front of crowds. But I would just be like, miss it!
Oh.
And they would always make it whenever I would do the miss it. Like, it'd be 48-yard field goal, like the Wake Forest game, like in these driving rainstorms.
Yeah.
I'm like, miss it! And then it's like, and it's good. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I think I stopped doing it around 2019.
That's why I say this is automatic. No way he misses this.
Yeah.
If I want him to miss.
Shout out to our guy Chris Fowler, by the way, back in 2016 when Miami was lining up to tie the game with the extra point after that fourth down conversion, I think, to Stacey Coley.
Yeah.
And he pointed out, he's like, Michael Badgley, a perfect 68 on PATs this year.
Yeah. Yep.
So appreciate it.
DeMarcus Walker had something to say about that. Yeah. Shout out to DeMarcus Walker, by the way. Not really nice career he's had.
Last one here. Actually, no, there's this question. Earliest FSU memory from our guy Turd Ferguson. His wife and him just welcomed their first boy, second child, about a week ago. Congrats.
Yeah, congratulations.
He was born in 97. He's already had 2 kids. Good for him.
Repopulate. Well, that's about normal, right? A newborn and probably a 2-year-old. I think that's on the. It's not crazy early, is what
at 28. Yeah, that's how I wish I would have done it. Good for you, Turd Ferguson. I'm jealous. I was here for some good times, but my earliest memories were when I was actively paying attention, or of us getting stomped by the Meyer-led Gators, or Meyer.
Yeah.
Every year at the neighbor's watch party. Not a good introduction, but it sure made that 2013 season all the more special as a junior in high school. My question is this: what are your earliest FSU memories? Could be a game you went to, or game or play you saw on TV. The clearest memory, which is, I can't believe, I was 9 years old, so my head should have been a little bit more formed by then, but the Michigan game in the Big House is like the first Florida State game I remember. I do remember being at my uncle's house, and it was one of the games against Miami, and it was at nighttime, and it was on CBS, right? Like the, I don't know, like 88 game, 89 game maybe. I remember being on the TV, but not like remembering any plays specifically. But I remember the 91 game against Michigan. That's like my first Florida State memory.
My first one, I guess, would be that Jacksonville State game. I don't remember anything before that. That we all were born again. We were born anew with that walk off. I honestly, I think I've talked about this before. I don't remember much about the game. I mean, I know about it now because I've read up on it and I'm a weirdo. But like driving to like Macon or wherever me and my dad drove, it might have been Valdosta, to get the ABC regional broadcast of Florida State versus Miami. Because back then, folks, if you haven't heard this story before, not every game used to be on TV. And Florida State was only on national TV maybe once or twice a year, maybe. This was 1982. And so Florida State was playing Miami at Miami. The top half of Georgia, or maybe most of Georgia till you got to like the Valdosta area, all had some other game, let's say Georgia Ole Miss. But if you went to below that, you would get the regional coverage was Florida State Miami. So my dad drove. He didn't want to go all the way to the game. We drove and rented a hotel room for the day to watch Florida State play Miami. And I thought it was Macon, but it might have been all the way to Valdosta. I don't know. To watch Florida State play Miami in 1982. Florida State beat them. That's back when Florida State used to win at Miami. But in the 80s, they started not winning there a lot. But, so that's my earliest memory was that. I think I was 7. Yeah, I was 7 when that happened. Greg Allen, I think, scored in that game. They won 24-7. I know that. And then my first game was a couple of months later. I went to the Gator Bowl when they played Jeff Hostetler in the Gator Bowl, and they were underdogs, and they beat them pretty convincingly in a driving rainstorm, which I do remember that as well. An absolute deluge.
When did we go to these nationally televised games that were rock solid? Because I think even 10, 15 years ago, there would still be those maps where it was, you had to know whether your game was going to be on ABC or ESPN. And it was, if you lived in Mississippi, you were going to get the Florida State, Georgia Tech game, but if you lived in Albuquerque, New Mexico, you were getting Iowa State and Kansas State. Like there used to be that time where you didn't know which, actually even like 15 years ago, which channel to put it on. But now, thankfully, it's just like, all right, Florida State's on ABC, whether you're in Alaska or in Alachua County.
Kids don't know.
They don't know.
They don't understand. Like I remember specifically being at Georgia Southern University in 1994, watching Washington in Miami's long-ass winning streak. At home winning streak. It was like a 58-game home winning streak. Washington was a 2-touchdown. I think they had Napoleon Kaufman. They go and beat that 94 Miami team pretty convincingly. Game's over. Game's over. Like literally it's over. It's stopped. They're shaking hands. Meanwhile, at the exact same time, Colorado is playing at Michigan, and it's coming down to the final minute, and they will not switch the game over. They are showing the studio, John Saunders and whoever are in the studio, and then you hear a yell in the background from some producer that saw it. And like, oh, wait, hold on. It looks like Colorado might have just won the game. Oh, well, let's go see. And, yeah, it's one of the most famous plays of all time. And they didn't not only could we not watch the game in full, they wouldn't even switch over. But they showed the highlight 20 seconds later. That's the life we used to live, folks. As a Florida State fan in Atlanta, if I wanted to, even in the dynasty during the early to mid-90s, to watch Florida State play, we would have to go to a sports bar that got the Sunshine Network satellite feed and Paul Kennedy and Keith Jones.
Right, primetime Noles.
That's how we had to do. Yeah, that's how we had to watch football back then. It was crazy. So you're lucky. Now I know this year you would have liked all of them to be blacked out, but typically it's really cool. You live in a world, and also you get to see them all online anyway now. But I don't. That's a good question. I would say. I feel like it's been like 20 years, maybe 15 years since you had to deal with any of that. Like typically, they're all on now. It's not like Georgia, Alabama, or Kansas, Utah.
No, it was because when I was in Montana in 2010, Florida State was playing Oklahoma at OU, and we went to a sports bar, and I'm like, all the TVs are on ABC because that was like the premier game. But for whatever reason, their master controller at ABC did not do the proper switchover. So they were taking like the wrong feed. But we were in like the geographical right place to be on that channel. And then they had to, it was absolute madness. But like that, the Florida State Oklahoma game was supposed to be on ABC. All the TVs were on ABC,
That's
but they were taking the wrong feed.
So maybe 12?
Yeah, I think like 12, 13 around that time.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Hey, I don't know. Did you hop into this thread over on the Tribal Council entitled Minor Frustration with Headlines?
Oh, no, I would never read that because I assume it's about me.
No,
I don't want to have to go in there and defend myself.
No, it's not. It's our guy Peter Warwick had you do that. The Headlines crew keeps saying, quote, you don't overpay for a good player unless you're on the cusp of winning a title. They state it as if it is obvious logic and don't actually explain the logic. We don't understand as an audience why you are always saying don't try and get better players. You are telling us to accept an average roster and don't explain why. Any thoughts on that?
I don't remember saying that. I don't remember that point of coming up. I think it's like I don't think they'd ever say that. Doesn't make any sense. I would have a hard time if Jeff Cameron sat there and said, "No, you don't want to overpay if you don't have a chance to win a championship." It's like, well, what? Why? If he's going to make your team, if he's going to win you 1.5 extra games, you absolutely overpay, quote unquote. We're not overpaying anyway. It's not our money. I've always thought the conversation centered more on don't go just get a guy to get a guy. Don't go get just a body just to have a body and pay more than he's worth if you have somebody similar on your own team. I would absolutely, like, if I don't know what the player in question is.
There wasn't one.
Yeah, but if there was one that we were talking about, I don't know why you would. No,
here we go. Sorry. To be more specific, they are saying we won't try to outbid Miami for a player we both want because Miami is closer to a title. They are not explaining this concept well enough for the average listener.
I honestly, and I'm not trying to push anything away or not deflect. I don't remember that conversation at all. And maybe it happened this last week when I missed the first 40 minutes because of the flipping Hilton. But maybe it happened then, but I don't. Number one, I don't remember ever having that conversation. I definitely don't think we say it constantly, and I don't know why.
Well, I've heard Jeff say that you find yourself in a position when you're 2-10 and you have all these question marks around your program that you have to overpay to get players. I've heard him say that, but in terms of like this Miami stuff, I mean, if I want to try to play some sort of devil's advocate here, I get it. Like Miami thinks they're closer to winning a national title, so to them it's worth spending an extra $50,000.
Why would they think that? Like, why would it? You start from ground zero every year.
Well, they like their offensive line. I think they like their running game. They got C.J. Daniels from LSU, which I think they're a net negative on their receivers. I do. But they went and added the kid from BYU. They went and got the kid from Cincinnati. They gave Carson Beck weapons. And then that defense is a complete overhaul with a new coordinator, but they still have Reuben Bain, who's like a projected top 10 pick possibly. And they got one of the better safeties. So, I mean, they've done enough to where they can convince themselves that I'm not picking Miami to make the playoff, but they've done enough to where they're like, all right, if we add another piece or two here, that firms us up to get where we need to go. I think maybe in this example, if we're talking about Tony Johnson, the kid from Cincinnati, who's caught like 30 passes a year or whatever. Like if you're Florida State, what is his war? Like what I don't think he lifts your floor enough and he doesn't really enhance your ceiling. But with Miami, maybe it's like, all right, for us, it's worth spending $95,000 on 28 more catches because we think that could push us over the top. Whereas Florida State, it's like he's a difference between the Pop-Tart Bowl and the Gator Bowl.
Well, but that's not to say that those are your only two options. Maybe he's the difference between a first-round bye and a playoff, and you actually have to host a playoff game. Literally, there's no way to know right now. But I would say, like, it's not apples to apples when you're like just using him as an example, the receiver from Cincinnati. Why would you spend a lot more money than you need to spend on a position that maybe isn't a huge need for you in the sense that you're not going to throw the ball a ton? Wide receiver isn't nearly as important a position, in my opinion, as defensive line at Florida State or offensive line. They definitely addressed offensive line. They went and got 2 good receivers. You can't go get 5 good receivers. You don't need them. Gus doesn't throw it that much, and your quarterback you got isn't John Elway. By the way, what a story that is.
My goodness. Yeah.
Good night. So that's why I think it's like, okay, it's allocating money to the right resources, not just I would never sit there and agree that Florida State doesn't need to bid with Miami because they don't have a chance and Miami does. Screw that noise. That's why I'm saying I don't remember that conversation. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention, but screw that noise. Miami's no closer to a national championship than Florida State is. They all start from zero every year. They got a brand new quarterback. I don't know if Carson Beck's any good. Is Carson Beck a better thrower of the football than Tommy Castellanos? Absolutely. Is he going to be better in that system than Castellanos and Gus? Don't know. I think Tommy matches Gus's offense pretty good. And the whole goal is to score points and win games. We'll see who does that more. But I would never think Florida State should sit back to Miami. It's preposterous. I do not agree with that. I do not agree with that. I do not agree with that when it comes to Clemson either. By the way, that's another thing with Clemson. The way Klubnik played at the end of the year is why they're so
touted.
They're so touted, but also why they feel really good about the team this year. Yeah, obviously he's got wide receivers too now, which is nice. They got some defensive dudes that came back. They're good on defense, at least that defensive line.
And a new coordinator. They took Tom Allen away from Penn State, gave him a boatload of money. Yeah.
Like Clemson's always going to have some dudes. It's that quarterback, man. It's not just that you have a quarterback that's played a lot of football. You have a quarterback that certainly seemed to turn a corner and go from okay to decent to really effing good in the manner of 3 months. And if you have a really effing good quarterback like Florida State did heading into 2023, that's where you get a lot of encouragement and excitement about the season.
Last thing.
It's been a long show.
It has been.
Sorry, everyone.
They like listening to you sometimes.
Sometimes. Well, that's nice.
Pete Nakos, some reporting over on On3. There's no firm plan in place for this to happen, but there's hubbub. Transfer portal window, Corey. I mean, they obviously limited it. It used to be like, what, a 30-day window in January, then like a 15-day window in the spring, and then it became like 10 days in December, and then whatever it was here in late April. If you had to do this, you know, where you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, like you can't be like, all right, no more. You get one-time transfer, and that's it. We're going to get rid of the unlimited transfer. You can't do that. But I feel like if you just have one window and it's just May, I think that limits just how much teams depend on the portal. But I think that would give players way more leverage on negotiation and moving around. What do you think? If they're only going to have one window, is it better to do it in December, where I think you're going to have a lot more guys jump into it, or coaches and teams will lean on it that much more, knowing that they can get a whole spring? Or if you just do a May window, it's like, listen, we didn't get that kid for winter workouts, we didn't have him for spring. It's really not worth it to only have him for 6 months at X amount of dollars or whatever. What do you think is the best way forward?
I absolutely think it would stay. I would keep it in December because of what you said. Your qualm with it initially is the negotiation and the leverage, buddy. You've got no, like, if all of a sudden Castellanos came to you on June 11th or May 20th and said, I need $500,000 more dollars, you're like, okay, are you not going to give it to him and you're going to stick with Brock Glenn? Yeah. Or are you going to give it to him? Like, I think that the market is much more fair and it's equitable on both sides, the program and the player. If the scales shift exponentially if you wait till May, because there's no, spring practice is over and you're in dire straits then. You're desperate at that point. So you're not really desperate in December. I guess you would be if there was no spring portal window opening. But you know what they should do, Aslan? And obviously Nick Saban's going to take care of this now that he's the czar of college football. But President Trump delivering on that.
Yeah.
He started a committee to have a study.
Promises made, promises kept.
Right. So if you had a czar, I would say, okay, you're allowed to transfer once every 4 years. And people would be like, that's not fair because coaches get to leave every year. Well, no. I'm going to hold coaches to the same standard. You get to switch jobs once in 4 years. You sign and if you're trying to take your third job in 4 years, there are no you don't get to apply for a hardship
show cause
case with the NCAA. Nope, you have to take the year off if you want another job. You have to take the year off. Like, keep it. That's been the issue all along. And every time, and I've talked to really smart people at this conference that lament the players getting paid, and I'm like, yeah, but you understand. And you know what I'm going to say? Florida State's head coach just got paid $10 million. And he clearly wasn't that important to the team. The guy that was the most important, Jordan Travis, got a fraction of that. How is that fair? So it isn't. So let's just make it more equitable. These coaching salaries, I think, are going to come way down. And let's also just hold the players and the coaches to the same exact standards. And obviously this will take contracts and probably collective bargaining. But wouldn't that be awesome?
No,
just make it fair. If you're gonna, because you can't. How do you limit the players to only transfer once, but the coaches get to go willy nilly?
That's what the sport's been. This is not the NFL, man. It's not the NFL. Like, you'll get to the NFL in 3 years. Wait.
Right. Well, they all won't though. Castellanos ain't going to go play in the NFL. Jordan Travis didn't take a snap in the NFL. His only lucrative marketing chances, and it wasn't because at the time it wasn't what it is now, was in college football.
And I'm fine with that. I'm fine with if a local company wants to give you X amount of dollars, the pay for play stuff, which I know that's what we're gunning with the house settlement.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't think that's nearly the amount of look at what we're doing for you guys. Like, I think power brokers, administrators are like, all right, like, we're giving these guys revenue share. They're going to get off our backs. It's like, absolutely not. Like,
but Norvell getting $10 million is ludicrous. And I'm not just.
He at least struggled for like 2 years of his life as a GA in the middle of nowhere, eating ramen noodles. Like, these kids are like 18 right, and they want to be millionaires already.
Entitled millionaires. I got you. That's what college football is all about. I'm just saying, it's not when Jordan Travis becomes one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the country, he doesn't get paid nearly what one of the top 5 coaches in the country get. And as we saw the next year, who was really more vital to that team? Who just like the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes gets paid a heck of a lot more than Andy Reid because Patrick Mahomes means more. And Andy Reid's a really good coach. And I'm not just trying to urinate on Norvell. It goes for all these guys making all this money. And but anyway, I do think one of the offsets or one of the byproducts of the House settlement bill, I do think the college coaching salaries will come back down to earth. Like, why would college coaches get paid more than the Falcons head coach or the Packers head coach?
How is this happening?
Yeah, that's been happening forever.
I know, but how does it happen? Just like what Kirby wins another national title in 2 years, and they're not going to give him a raise. He's going to be like, I'm fine.
If everybody has a certain budget they can spend on their football team,
The players.
And but then also it's like, well, what is, well, I don't know. Maybe actually when it comes to when you actually get some revenue sharing, the coaching does become really important again. And I'm not saying Kirby Smart isn't important, but Texas Tech's probably going to have a decent year this year, man. Did their head coach all of a sudden get worlds better? And when they go 10-3 or whatever and have one of the Texas Tech great seasons in school history, he's going to get a raise. What for? They went and bought him his roster. So he should be happy to stay where he is. I don't know. It's all goofy. It's all goofy. The whole stupid sport is goofy. Let's hope they figure it out. But we're gonna have a czar of college football soon. And I'm being completely honest here. If we did have one, Saban would be a pretty good person.
I'm all in. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Saban would be a really good. I really do think, even though he got hundreds of coaches fired, it kind of ruined the sport with the Sabanization of everything, and now nobody can watch practice, and everybody's just trying to control what they can control. I think he really does care about the sport and would do what's best for it.
I think he'd have Jimbo work for him too. I think Jimbo would do some good for us as well.
I don't know. I don't think they get along anymore after Jimbo made fun of him.
No, they buried the hatchet. They buried the hatchet.
Yeah, just competitors.
Could you imagine, real quick, I know we got to go, but if there was only one window and it was in May, can you imagine if you're Florida State, right? Like, what would we have been talking about for the last 4 months? Right? Like they don't have any of this stuff. Deuce Robinson's not here. Tommy's not here.
Yeah.
I wonder if that also would affect coaches moving around too. Right? Because like you can take the job, and like, all right, like we've got these 2 windows to get everything figured out. Like if I'm a coordinator or a new head coach, and it's like, man, like I'm not going to move. Like I don't want, maybe that also freezes up the movement of coaches because you realize you can't just walk in and you've got you got these 2 opportunities to revamp your roster. It's like, no, man, you're going to walk into that job in January and that's your team. And that's a team you're working with. And then you try to do something in May, but you can't do a complete.
Yeah, it would be utter chaos. It would be like the NFL having the draft and all the free agency July 20th. Like, you know what I mean? Like you're just scrambling.
Love it.
You are just scrambling and desperate.
They're going to pay him $10 million a year. Not just Mike, but all these guys. There's other guys that are making a bunch of money.
Go earn your money. Go earn your checks, everyone.
Yeah. All right. You guys go do that. Go simulate our economy. We simulated your minds. We appreciate you all for listening for another week of Wake Up Warchant, presented by Vitamin Energy. Jeff Cameron Show. Florida State taking on Cal this weekend. Softball tournament, I think, winding down.
Yeah, they're playing the team. Florida State plays Duke on Friday morning at 10 in the semifinals. Okay. And to remind folks, Duke is the team that won the ACC championship last year. So no love lost between these 2 programs.
All right, well, go Noles. Thanks again for watching, listening. He's Corey Amazon. Thanks for listening to Wake Up Warchant, presented by Vitamin Energy, vitaminenergy.com. Shake it and take it.